Hello and welcome. All right, just testing out, making sure everything is working. Hello, welcome. I am Michael Short. I'm the artistic director here at Blind Tiger Improv, which is an improv company located in the Hudson Valley, New York. We do short form, we do long form, we do classes, drop ins, workshops, and we do shows as well. And currently, all those shows are here on Twitch. Uh, as soon as this crazy stuff is all over, it'll be back in physical locations again. We've performed at the Howland Cultural Center in Beacon. We've performed at the Forall Theater in Peekskill. We performed all over, and we're excited to get back to that. In the meantime, of course, we're doing stuff here online. What I thought I'd like to do, and this is a bit of an experiment, this is something that I wanted to do, is see how it works out, is to talk shop. Throw some of my ideas out into the world to maybe give my performers and students some food for thought and the improv community in general. A little bit about myself to make sure that you know where I'm coming from. I've been doing improv for about 20 years, give or take, a few months. I started in college doing short form in SUNY Fredonia, and since then I've trained with the Second City. I've trained with the Magnet Theater, with the UCB, and the Annoyance. And this is all to say that I've got a lot of different influences, a lot of different sources of inspiration, and I pull what I need from a lot of different places. So I might not be talking about any particular school of improv here. I may do some nods to things that you're familiar with, but for the most part, it's from a lot of different places. All right. A lot of this is going to be completely off the cuff. It's unscripted. That's how I work best. Unfortunately, it also is how I ramble best. So if that happens, just bear with me. It's okay. Like I said, this is a talking shop, Twitch, and I ask people to send me questions that might provide some interesting discussion topics. I got some emails last week, and one of them I wanted to do a deeper dive into. The question was sent to me, and the question was, what do you do when you are not jiving with your scene partner? So I want to really dig into that one and see if I can give a couple of different ideas on what to do with that. And I'm going to cover it from two aspects. The first aspect is going to be, what do you do in the moment? What is your response right then and there? And the other aspect is going to be, well, what do you do globally? What do you do maybe overall in your general approach to improv that might help you find some more success? All right. So what do you do when you're not jiving with your scene partner? Well, I find that the reason we're not jiving with our scene partner is because we're usually trying to forward some idea. We're trying to push some agenda, something that's on our minds, some idea that we're trying to push, a game that we're trying to cement. We're trying to make something happen. And that is the thing that's going to make it harder to jive with your scene partner. Because the minute that you are in your own head thinking about what you think the scene should be, you're not paying attention to them and seeing what the scene actually is. So, one moment here. There we go. All right. That's fun. In case you're wondering what I'm complaining about right now, there's a computer screen that's flashing blue on my face every once in a while. So if I turn into a Smurf every couple of seconds, that's why. All right. So, what was I saying? Often we're trying to push some sort of agenda, some sort of game, and we're not paying attention to what the scene is actually about. So the first thing to do, the first tactic to use when you find yourself in this situation is to simply stop. Release that agenda, whatever it is. Stop trying to hammer it. Stop trying to push it. Let go of it. It's an idea that might be in your head, and you've been hanging on to it in your head for a long, long time. And maybe it makes sense to you. Maybe it's a pretty good idea. That's fine, but it's tripping you up. Holding on to it is tripping you up. So we have to let go of that agenda, let go of it. And what we do instead is look at our scene partner and respond to them, react to them. Whatever they're doing, have some kind of reaction to it. This is the simplest thing that we can do. And this is really what improv is kind of based on, is reactions. Um, so that is really the simplest thing that you can do. Whatever that reaction is, recognize what it is, follow through with it, commit to it, explore it a bit more deeply. The second tactic that we can use, make a big choice. Oftentimes we find ourselves not jiving because we've kind of been in a bit of a limbo zone, in a bit of a vague land with whatever our scene is. So we need to actually decide, make a few decisions in the scene about what's going on, and share those ideas, make those ideas clear. Be very direct with whatever ideas we have going on. There's the old improv note, don't be coy. The note that makes it more active is be direct. Be direct with your ideas. Give your scene partner and yourself the gift of, here's what I think is going on. Let's see if we can maybe put that into some more concrete terms. A lot of times in an improv scene, you'll see two people who are emoting very well. They're definitely bouncing off each other. Very rapid fire, perhaps. They might be kind of at this very back and forth level, and that's fine. But we don't really know what's going on in that scene. We don't know who people are. We don't know where they are. We don't know what's going on. Those things weren't established. So at some point, someone needs to take that opportunity to simply say who they are, where they are. Label those things. Make those labels. Once I understand, if I'm in a scene, and once I understand that my behavior is coming from a parent or the Pope or a student or a doctor or whoever it is, that starts to contextualize my behavior a bit more. I start to understand a bit more what possibilities are available to me, and it also starts to help me understand what exactly it is about my behavior, why it's happening this way, what it could possibly mean. There's a difference between, if I'm behaving in an angry way, there's a difference between, a parent being angry and, a student being angry. There's different things available to them. There's different reasons why that particular person might be experiencing this emotion. Once it's labeled, I know what it is, I can start to move on with the scene. So yes, label yourselves, label whatever your character is, maybe label your scene partner. Somehow give each other that direct gift. It's going to be good for you, it's going to be good for the audience, it's going to be good for your scene partner. Some clear labels. Often those are what are missing. Add them in. Anytime you find yourself in a scene kind of wondering, like, who are we? Instead of panicking, that is your brain telling you that you found an opportunity. You found an opportunity to add something very specific. Next thing that we can do, say one of the following two phrases and then fill in the blank after it. And the two phrases are I am and you are. And the blank after it is going to be some kind of emotional read that you're getting. And that can be an emotional read that you're getting off of yourself. I am feeling a particular way. Or it can be an emotional read that you're getting off of the scene partner. You are acting this way. I am sad. You are nervous. Whatever it is. Those are two possible examples. Whatever it is. And this is kind of going back into the idea of giving gifts, being more direct with your ideas instead of being coy and being trying too hard to be hip and natural with our acting. We are more direct with our ideas. Okay, we are playing a sad person. We are playing a nervous person. Now we know. We have gifted each other with what our states are. And it kind of also goes back to that original idea of getting a read off of your scene partner and responding to them, reacting to them. This puts it in a bit more of a verbal form that allows you to directly communicate what that read that you're getting is. Oftentimes I give this note, people say, Michael, what if my read is wrong? And to that I say, that is also a gift. A lot of times in human communication, we get the wrong idea from people. And I say that is where drama and comedy can often lie. If you've gotten something wrong, but you still act on it anyway, that's a more active scene. The conflict might now come from how this person is so wrong, getting things so completely inept at reading emotions, perhaps. Lots of great dramas in the history of English literature and playwriting have been about miscommunications. Read any Shakespeare play. Miscommunication in emotion, in intention, is a thing that we can play with. So go ahead, make that choice, make that read confidently, knowing that it either A, will be on the nose, you've gotten it, now we're all on the same page, and now we can start playing with that, or even if you've gotten it wrong, that will still lead to interesting choices. The next thing I want to suggest to any person who feels they're not jiving is to repeat the first line of your scene. This is a very simple tactic that I think works in a lot of different kinds of problem areas. And the purpose of repeating your first line is this. It kind of reminds you what your deal was. It reminds you what you came into that scene with. The first line of a scene is important. It's very useful to you. It's very useful to your scene partner. It's useful to the audience because it kind of communicates to everybody, well, here's what I want to play with for the next, 2 minutes or half hour, however long the show is or scene. So repeating that first line is going to re-ground you into that idea that you started with. Now when I say that that first line is important, I don't mean that we should labor over creating that first line in the first place. We have to just start a scene often, and any line will do, really. There's a lot of things that we can start a scene with. There's things that I prefer starting a scene with, but there's hundreds of ways that we can start scenes, each of them valid, because again, we just got to get started sometimes. But once we say that thing, once we do get started, we've now promised to the audience that this is a thing we're going to be talking about. This is what the scene is going to be about. This line, this thing that we started with, is the seed for the rest of the scene. So repeating that first line reminds everyone of what the seed was. It also allows us to play with interesting dynamics. A thing to remember with any scene, with any improv, is that we can't control our scene partners. Because we're talking right now a lot about what do we do when we don't jive with our scene partners? Well, there's nothing that we can do that will make our scene partners do anything. It's all got to be for ourselves. We've got to take care of ourselves and make sure that we're jiving with them. We can't make them jive with us. We have to go to them. So by repeating what we say, by reminding ourselves of what we are doing in a scene, that's mostly a gift for us. It does gift our scene partner. It might help them also kind of remember where we started, but maybe it doesn't. In which case we now have a different dynamic to play with, and it's a bit of a rubber band kind of dynamic where we might start in one spot, stretch it out a little bit, snap back to that initial point, then we can stretch it out again, snap back to that original point, stretch it out again, snap it back. That stretching out is whatever tangent, whatever other thing that the scene partner might be doing is. And that snapback is that initial point that you started with that we refresh every time we repeat that first line. So that is one dynamic we can play with. It's not a perfect dynamic. It's not one that I want to do in every improv scene, but it is one that can work and provide satisfactory results if nothing else is happening. That's a thing to remember. A lot of times these tactics, they simply lead to satisfactory results. They lead to serviceable scenes. A lot of times we're doing scenes and things are clicking, things are going great. We love it. This improv is fantastic. It's playful. We've stepped outside ourselves. We've fully embodied these characters, and everything's great. And no one can explain why that improv worked. And then every once in a while, more times than not, we do improv that happens. We do improv that is fine. It's okay. And we create a scene. We create an improvisation that's good enough. That's serviceable. The scene had structure to it. The scene had heightening to it. We knew where the characters were. We knew what they were doing. There were some laughs, and we got out of it. And no one left the scene feeling bad about ourselves. And really, to me, that is sometimes that's just what you're shooting for. You're not shooting for the most brilliant improv you can possibly do. You're shooting for the improv that is working. I know this sounds like a very dour way to look at improv. What I'm saying is that we manage our expectations. I'm kind of launching now into what the overall change can be. We manage our expectations. We understand that not every single scene is going to be brilliant. We understand that not every single scene is going to be perfect. We understand that we're not always going to jive with our scene partner, and it's okay. It's fine. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We manage those expectations so that when we do an okay scene and when we switch our tactics up in the moment to provide an okay scene, we don't beat ourselves up over it afterwards. We kind of mitigate that overall damage, for lack of a better phrase. So yeah, mitigate the damage by doing more serviceable improv. That is probably not the best lesson I want to pass on, but you know what? It's true. Sometimes that's just how things are. But again, we're looking at overall changes that we can now apply to our improv. Kind of piggybacking off of the idea of managing expectations. Like I said, sometimes we just don't jive. If it happens, it happens. And we just kind of got to move on from it a little bit. Really, we should only really worry about it when it's been, we should only really worry about it when it's been like, okay, the last 2 months of shows, I have not jived with my scene partner at all. Something's wrong. The last 10 shows I've done, I have not been jiving. What's going on? If it's, the last two scenes you did just weren't good. It's the last 10 scenes, if it's the last 15 scenes, if it's the last couple of shows, okay, there's something wrong. Your behavior needs to change. You need to adjust something about your approach to your improv so that you can find some new success. Oftentimes, this is just getting rid of some of the things that we've been doing that maybe are comedy crutches, getting rid of some of the things that we go to too easily. If we find ourselves, playing children too often, if we find ourselves, playing basically Rain Man as a character all the time, thinking that that's funny and that's going to work, but it's going to not work after a while. So we have to kind of let go of these characters, ideas, comedy crutches that we've been leaning on, start challenging ourselves more. Start moving into some other improv territory. Refresh what it is that we're bringing into the improv in the first place. Um, yeah. So that is that. What else can we do to help overall? Overall, yeah. So again, this is rambly, and I apologize for a lot of the ums. I am recording this. I'll probably edit this down to a much nicer, sharper, 5-minute video at some point. I've been rambling for about 20 minutes now. Hopefully, this is helping people if anyone's watching. By the way, as I'm talking here, if anyone happens to be watching, go right ahead, type comments into the Twitch chat on the side. I believe it's there. Point that way. Getting used to being on camera here. You can type any questions in if you want me to discuss them a little bit more. I will gladly do that. All right, let's jump into the next thing I was going to talk about, which is, what are other things that we can do to kind of refresh our tactics overall going into scenes so that we less and less find ourselves not jiving with our scene partner, right? So the first thing was, what do we do in the moment when we find ourselves not jiving? Now, the second thing is, what can we do overall so that we avoid not jiving? So overall, I find that if we enter into scenes with a stronger choice, there's different levels of choice that can be made in any improv scene. And some choices are very, very specific. They lay out the who, what, where very clearly, or they very strongly imply some context. The example of, like, whipping out a pointer and going, Professor, the formula. Okay, so like that very strongly implies a very specific context. I'm probably thinking of a character that might be joining me in that particular environment. The implications are strong. They're not cemented because it's improv, but there's strong implications. And then there's a scene starts that are less and less detailed, but are still pretty strong because they do have some specific in there somewhere. The very basic things like an emotion, a point of view, a philosophy. If you come out and you share any one of those at the first moments of a scene, we have something really strong that we can play with. I would argue against starting with object work in a specific way. If you come out and you kind of mindlessly do some object work, what often happens is people will come out and chop some vegetables, and they'll kind of start to get a little focused on really miming the hell out of chopping those vegetables and really start paying a little too much attention to their own object work. And it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be the most amazing chopped vegetables ever mimed on stage, but then they're so drawn into that they've forgotten to pay attention to their scene partner, and they've forgotten to make any kind of character choice for themselves. So if you really, really, really want to do object work at the top of the scene, make sure you do it object work plus. Make sure it's object work plus emotion, object work plus philosophy, object work plus a character, or physicality, or something like that. Don't just do it on its own. Don't do it in neutral. You can get ideas from the objects that you mime, but if you're too focused on it in a neutral way, you're going to find yourselves stuck and in your head and all of a sudden not jiving, right? So start with something strong and specific that gifts yourself with an attitude about what's going on, whatever that is. it can be very small and very simple. I enjoy emotional sounds, make a laugh, make a sob, make a growl, uh, and then decide that this is, how I feel. This is how I feel about myself, perhaps, or about my scene partner, whatever it is. I've just made a choice, and I'm going to project it onto the scene. Physicality is also cool. Voice is also cool. A lot of things, though. And again, this is kind of like caveat of these techniques. I love doing silly voices, but oftentimes my silly voices will sort of sit in just the throat. They'll just simply be a silly voice, and there won't be much more characterization to them. So if you decide that you want to do a silly voice, make sure that they don't just live in your throat. Make sure they move into your heart. Make sure that they become an actual fully fledged character out of it. Oh, told you this is rambly. There's a point I wanted to bring up when we talked about tactics in the moment. This kind of gets lumped in with the make a big choice. But the choice is not necessarily a label, it's more of an action, making it active, emotionally active. Make some sort of big emotional choice in the middle of a scene. A big emotional action, that is, like sobbing or crying, and and sort of put the cart before the horse. What I mean is, make that big action, make that big laugh, make that big sob, but don't answer why you're doing it before you do it. What I mean is, sometimes we are thinking in our heads about when I give this note to people to try it out as an experiment. I often find people report to me that they're thinking of like, well, why would I be laughing, or why would I be crying? And they're trying to find the reason to laugh or cry before they laugh or cry. And what I say is, go ahead without a reason, just begin laughing, just begin crying, just begin doing something. And then, after you do it, then you can figure out why. And our brains are often good at kind of post-justifying and rationalizing our actions. So go right ahead and do the thing, and then afterwards, let your brain figure out why it is you did what you did. The best ways that I've found, the best justifications, are ones where whatever it is our scene partner has just done is the thing that we're going to laugh or cry about. So, if a person says, hey, I rented Die Hard, and you start crying, then you go, okay, I'm crying because they rented Die Hard. And the reason I would cry because you rented Die Hard is, I had bad Christmases growing up, and this movie reminds me of bad Christmases. Great. That's a scene, right? So look for those opportunities to make the big emotional action and then justify it afterwards. Excuse me. So yeah, okay, overall techniques that we can do, yeah, again, coming into a scene with any kind of choice whatsoever, it gifts our scene partner, I say this over and over again, any choice, it is a gift to everybody in the room, yourself, your scene partner, the audience. And really, I as a coach, as a director, as a teacher, I would rather see any choice over no choice. The only bad choice in improv is no choice. I didn't come up with that myself. That is from a teacher of mine, Asaf Ronen, who is highly influential to me, and a lot about my approach. I take a lot from Asaf. He is currently based out of Austin, Texas. So if you are in the Austin area and you're able to, seek out Asaf Ronen. I highly recommend him. And if you can't do that, the next best thing is to purchase his book, Directing Improv. I think it's available on Kindle, and it's also available in a physical copy. So, shout out to Asaf, uh, because he really taught me a lot when I was working with him many years ago. Uh, I had one more thought that I wanted to share. Uh, this on the subject of no choices, especially when I'm teaching or directing. I want to share a little quick story about how, when I was in Little League as a kid, I spent one summer not swinging my bat at all because I was afraid of striking out. I wasn't very good at baseball as a kid. I'm uh, I'm not much of an athlete, really, anyway, but I definitely wasn't then. And yeah, I just got it in my head as a kid that I was really bad and that I would somehow let everyone down. And so I didn't swing the bat at all because I was afraid of striking out. And so for the entire summer, did not swing once. At the end of that summer, how much better was I at swinging the bat? I wasn't any better at all. If I had swung the bat at least once, I would have learned something. If you're in an improv scene and you make a choice, even if it's a shitty choice, even if it leads to a less than serviceable scene, you still gave yourself an opportunity to learn something. So, with all these tactics, try them out. Maybe they'll work for you. Maybe they won't. Maybe you'll find something that works for you better than the stuff that I've laid out. If you do find something that works for you, I'd love to hear about it. I love expanding my palette and knowledge base about things that we can do in the moment. You can always email me at info@blindtigerimprov.com. I read every email. Feel free to let me know about things that you find have worked for you when improvising and you're not jiving. And make those choices. Make those learning opportunities for yourself. That's what this is all about. Anyway, I hope that if anyone is watching, that you enjoyed this long half-hour ramble about improv shop talk. I plan on doing a few more of these, and maybe this will turn into a regular thing. Because you know what? I kind of do this on my own anyway, without a camera. So might as well at least do it in a form that other people can maybe learn from or benefit from in some way. Again, if you've got anything you'd like to share, any of your thoughts, if you've got disagreements, if you've got agreements, if you've got anything at all about what we've talked about today, I'd love to hear it. The more that you disagree with me, the more improv grows, is the way I look at it, and the more that we discuss things and share ideas, the more improv grows. I want to thank you all for watching, and I hope everyone is having a good day, a good night, staying safe and staying healthy. Hopefully I'll be in the same room as you at some point. Keep improvising. And